I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. Today, I wanted to cover two cases briefly. Both include a girl being groomed by an adult male. This case right here is her foster father, and in another case, it was a boyfriend. And both cases end up with the girl in this case committing a murder. And I just wanted to compare and contrast these cases because this case here, it seems like Sabrina Zunic that she was manipulated by her foster father, and there was this dynamic within the household that happened where Sabrina was kind of jealous of the way that Lisa, the foster mom in this case, how she treated her two other daughters. And that kind of jealousy, that disagreement, that created a lot of conflict between the two of them. And then she ended up getting closer with her foster father. Now he in the getting closer to her, because I think she just wanted to get closer to him as, like, another loving figure in the household. So around 7 when she was around 17 years old, so she came into the home at 16, and then at 17 years old, that's when their relationship became intimate, and nobody knew. I think the wife might have suspected that there was something odd with their relationship, and then in 2012, the foster father, he takes out, he has this life insurance policy. He wants to leave his wife, but he wants the money. And he convinces Sabrina to unalive Lisa. And he kind of tells Sabrina that she can plead not guilty by reason of insanity. And she attempts this insanity defense for months. For months, she attempts this insanity defense, and it's not going anywhere. And he is off with almost $800,000 in life insurance money, living his best life. He pays off his house, he buys a whole bunch of cars, like he's off living his life, and she's in jail facing the murder of his wife. And he, it's my understanding, he sat here and he told her, like, if she's laying on her back, do it like this. If she's laying on her side, do it like this. He was a truck driver, and his wife, Lisa, she was a social worker. The reason why I talk about this case is because within this dynamic within the household, I think it proves the importance of the husband and wife kind of being on the same page, or the parents being on the same page. In psychology, we call this triangulation, where it's two people against somebody else. And as a therapist, I have to be careful when I'm working with a family that I don't partner with one person against somebody else, or that they're not trying to bring me on their side to be against somebody else. When I'm doing family therapy, I am on the family side. And even when there are allegations of somebody having narcissistic traits, or even if there are certain things happening, if there aren't clear boundaries being crossed. And what I mean by that is within my state, I go by whatever we consider to be, like, whatever would rise to the level of a CPS complaint, or if the behavior is starting to interfere with treatment and causing a safety issue, that is when I definitely speak up. I'm glad that we were able, so this one came up in my algorithm. I linked because I'm not gonna go into all the details of this case. It is really fascinating because at some point, Sabrina. So she's the foster daughter all the way. Okay, so my camera mirrors. So she is the daughter all the way on the end. Let me share a different screen. Here we go. All right. So here is Sabrina. It's my left. Let me see where it is for y'all. I think it should be the left for you all too. And the foster father, Kevin. And he pretty much promised her, like, hey, once my wife is out of the picture, we can be together. That is what the evidence came, because he ends up getting arrested. and he, of course, ends up going to jail. So when I looked at the other picture, so Sabrina, let me go back to here. Sabrina is the one the closest one. You see the person that's hugged, that's all the way close with the foster father, Kevin. That is Sabrina. Let me go back to this one. All right. So in November 2012, Lisa, y'all know me and names, Knoffel, and her foster daughter. So she was unalived by her foster daughter, Sabrina Zunic, and she stabbed her almost 200 times while her and her younger two daughters, so her younger two daughters witnessed this. Okay. So the other two girls in the home, Sabrina tried to do it in the middle of the night when hopefully people would be asleep. But they saw exactly what happened. Um uh and she had been having an intimate relationship with her foster father from the time she was 17 and he was 41 at that time. Wow, this okay. All right, let me see. All right, early years. So Sabrina, she was born to her parents, and her birth parents struggled with drug and alcohol addiction. And they had been arrested multiple times. She had been in and out of foster care. She had been diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. And when she came into their home, because she had a history of a lot of physical aggression, truancy, she had a history of a lot of major difficulties. She was doing better in their home, but no one knew that there was an inappropriate relationship between her and her foster father. And I go for the adult because she was the child in this case. And so she was raised mostly by her grandmother as a teenager, and she did have a history of some physical aggression. And then she ended up in a group home where she would spend several years coming in and out of the foster system. So in July of 2021, at the age of 16, Sabrina was placed with Kevin and Lisa and moved into their home in Ohio. Lisa was a social worker, and she specifically worked in the sex harm department. Kevin was a truck driver, and they had 2 daughters, Megan from Lisa's first marriage, and Haley, and that was the daughter between Kevin and Lisa, Sabrina's foster parents. Zunic seemed to fit well into the family and became close with the children. Now, her relationship with their youngest daughter, I saw in some other coverage that she would sometimes try to almost parent her, and Lisa would ask her to kinda take a step back, that, to let Lisa parent her. Despite having good grades in school, in December 2011, Zunic began acting out at home. She fought with Lisa, who, Sabrina felt Lisa gave preferential treatment to her own daughters. There was a little bit of an age gap between Sabrina and the younger girls, but yes. So Sabrina turned to Kevin, and they became unnaturally close. They were too friendly, they were too close. They would make sexual jokes towards one another. That's what one of Sabrina's friends told Oxygen's Snapped Behind Bars. In March 2012, Zunic told investigators, so this is what so once Sabrina started talking, it's my understanding, because November is when the incident happens. So Sabrina is saying that in March of 2012, that's when the relationship became sexual. And there are some details about that. And it's that slow grooming, and she really felt like they were in love. And, yes, uh, by summer of that year, Kevin and Lisa were fighting often, and Kevin told friends that they might divorce. In October of 2012, Sabrina asked a friend of hers if she would unalive her foster mother. So she was trying to get a hitman to unalive because this is how they ended up catching Kevin. this other person, because the case might not have been strong enough if it was only Sabrina's word. There was another friend of Sabrina's who had some trouble, had some difficulties. They were never able to arrange that hit, but detectives tried to record. They did record a phone call later on once Sabrina was arrested, and Sabrina came forward and gave all this information. The friend tried to call him, and the call was being recorded to talk about that hit that didn't go through. Lisa had almost $800,000 in life insurance policies with which Kevin told Sabrina that they would live a new life together and raise the youngest daughter, Haley, and that they would be this new family. Kevin contacted Sabrina's social worker that month and said that he and Lisa were considering divorce and asked if Sabrina would be able to stay with him if they separated. October 27th, Sabrina turned 18, at which point she could have left the foster care system, but instead she petitioned to remain in the home and finish high school. That's often an option for foster youth. Sometimes they can stay in care until they're 21 years old. Sometimes there are independent living programs. Some foster parents do still take, allow them to stay. Sometimes that foster parent still gets a stipend, or sometimes the financial situation with the state is worked out, but it is an option for foster youth to stay in the system beyond 18. But his desire to have her stay was more about their relationship than like truly caring about her well-being, in my opinion. By this time, however, Lisa had become suspicious of Sabrina and Kevin's relationship, and Sabrina was starting to feel like the mom, the wife in that case, wanted her out of the home. November 15th, 2012. While sh Yeah, and so they give the details of when and how they would be intimate. Because Kevin would drive her to school, and they give details about all those things. Um, all right. I believe Sabrina testified against him in his case. November 16th, 2012, 911 received a phone call from the 13-year-old reporting that her sister was stabbing their mother. And in the master bedroom, the authorities found them. There's body cam video of Sabrina being arrested, and there's also video of the initial interrogations. And Sabrina initially tried to make it seem like her medications weren't working. I think because maybe she had a bipolar diagnosis, she was thinking that she would have a better chance at some type of mental health defense. All right. All right. And so I hope we're all on the same page. So Sabrina is the foster youth that unalived her foster mother. All right. All right. Let's go back here. All right. And so November 17th, so this is a day after, November 17th, friends who came to check on the family thought Kevin was acting strange and aloof given the circumstances. His wife was just like violent, tragic way, and he seemed just kind of like fine. At some point, Kevin went to visit Sabrina uh, and became irritated when he was told that he would not be able to see her. Spring of 2013, while Zunic sat in jail, Kevin collected his wife's insurance money, proceeded to pay off his home, bought cars and a house in Florida, and took flying lessons. August of 2013, feeling abandoned by her former lover, Sabrina agreed to cooperate with investigators in early August of 2013 and testify against Kevin for the role he had in his wife's death. Kevin, now 43, was indicted and taken into custody on August 9th and was charged with conspiracy to commit aggravated capital M and complicity and complicity to aggravated capital M, as well as 6 counts of essay. All right. Kevin's trial for his wife's death began in May of 2014 with Sabrina's testimony at the heart of the prosecution's case against him. After deliberating for 9.5 hours, a jury found him guilty on all 11 counts, including those counts of essay and all of that. Kevin was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 30 years. He'll be eligible for parole in 2043 when he is 73 years old. I hope he also has to register as an SA offender as well. Because she was underage and he was in a caretaker role. So I get really concerned when people take advantage of situations like that. Let's take a brief pause from this case to give an update on the social worker that was impersonating a middle school and high school student. Do y'all remember that one? Let me see if I can find that real quick. Social worker. Who was pretending to be a student. There are new allegations that her former therapist knew, that a former therapist had treated her when she was an adult, like in an adult psychiatric facility, and then the therapist took her into her home, and that they're investigating if that therapist had any role in what happened. I saw that on Law and Crime. If more details come out about that, or if anything comes out, because that individual is also licensed as a social worker, I will definitely share any information that comes out about that. It should be in my recent history. Let me see if I can find that one, because that was a really good update. I watch too many videos, y'all. I watch way. While I'm getting work done, I like to have something going in the background. And so let's see if I can find it. Because it was an update from Law and Crime, because they talked about the risk that social worker faces with her license if any of this is true. And I guess there are witnesses from that former. Yes, here we go. I found it. Okay, so let me share this tab, and I will put this one in the chat. Like this one, okay, we might just have to play a little bit of it. Let's get to the part with the therapist. Okay, so let's skip ahead to this part. Wait a minute, it might be back here too. Because it's just, that was so odd. I had been following this case, and when I heard that there was a potential former that she had moved in with her therapist, that was just very, very strange to me. So let's play this part.
In the end, she was caught. But, it's a very disturbing case obviously, of not only just identity theft and fraud, but the fact that all these students that she came into contact with, may have been traumatized by her actions. So it's very concerning, obviously.
I want to get to that in a minute, because there's that second part of this. But let's get to this new information, because we now have new information that has come to light, and it concerns some of the people that were allegedly victimized by Hewitt's con. There's this woman and her partner who apparently took her in as a foster parent. I'm talking about therapist Rebecca Burnett. She opened her home to Hewitt, allowing her to live with her and her partner, John Smith. And before we get even further, Dr. Bober, just tell us, I'm assuming it's frowned upon and must be an ethical violation for a therapist to take in a patient and live with them?
Yes.
Yes, this is what we would call a boundary violation, where someone is acting outside the nature of the therapeutic relationship. Now, whether that relationship was something that was sexual or exploitative, we don't know.
Of that.
Now, the couple are claiming that they had no idea, who she was and what her true age was. We just don't know. But yes, it generally would be frowned upon in the therapeutic relationship to have someone move into your home with your partner. They did not go through the normal channels or the normal process. So she may have some answers for the state board of social work.
So that whole thing just I was not expecting any of that to come up when looking at and when taking a look at that particular case. I did also want to talk about Kaitlyn Coones because this one takes a bit more for me because she seems to be the one that instigated the the death of her boyfriend, her adult boyfriend's mother. And so Kaitlyn Coones, and at the time he was her boyfriend. Sorry about the ad, the pop-up. Oh, this is Toledo, Ohio. Wow. But or this is where this is being reported from. Hmm. A Canton teen. So once again, this is out of Ohio. Reportedly gave her 33-year boyfriend an ultimatum to unalive his mother or she would because she was interfering in their relationship. And he didn't do it, and so she did it herself. She is facing a life sentence along with her boyfriend who admitted to helping her cover it up. So they ended up doing plea negotiations. Jonathan Jones, he had already been convicted of child SA with her because he was 33 and she was a minor when their relationship started. She ran away from her group home to be with him, and after the death, she texts her so like a social worker or like a case manager back at the group home to say that she had just unalived two people and set a house on fire. Now, to our knowledge so far, there was only one person and there was not a house fire, but that was what kind of instigated the search for Jonathan Jones's mother. To knowledge, they have not been able to locate her body. His mother's name was Nicole, and this all happened back in April of 2023. And the fact that Caitlyn was the one that really instigated a lot of this, that points to more psychopath, antisocial type features versus in the first case we talked about with Sabrina. It seems like it was also still wrong. Like it was still, y'all, I gotta plug in my computer. It was still and what she did was still very wrong, and but it was the father in that case that was the one instigating all of that. In this case, it's the other way. It was Caitlyn. She was the one that instigated this, and she's the one that did it. I was very surprised. So they ended up both getting life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 years. I think the state took that plea deal because there still isn't they weren't able to locate the body. They were able to avoid a trial, and the parole board, they will have to be doing significantly better in order to be released. Like hopefully they will not be released if there's still a risk or a danger to society. And so that was that other case. Two very different cases. In one, the foster father was the one that kind of instigated the crime. And this other situation, it was the child, the 18-year-old. She's 18 now. I think she might have been 17 at the time. She was the one that instigated the crime and wanted the mom out of the way. He was living with his mom at the time, and the mom was being appropriate. Like, "Hey, don't have a relationship with this child. Like, being in a relationship with this child is going to cause you more problems. You're going to go back to jail." Those are probably the types of things that his mother was saying. Um, I would guess that Caitlyn likely has her own history of once again trauma. Lots of people go through trauma and don't harm other people. Okay, there is this path for psychopathy that can involve significant neglect, physical harm, SA that can involve certain things where people they make themselves the victim and they in no way consider the thoughts, needs, wants of others. There is no empathy. There is no compassion. They are not they don't see anything wrong with unaliving somebody that's in their way. So if somebody was in my way, so when I'm driving on the road and somebody is in my way, so I believe if I'm in the left hand lane and I would like to go, if speed limit's 65 and I want to go 70, and the person in front of me is going 68, they should get over. But I'm not going to like ram their car or run them off the road because that's wrong. There are some people that their compass for right and wrong, their they believe that they can get what they want at any cost, and they don't consider the thoughts, needs, the lives of others. I don't think Caitlyn cared about his mom. I think she very much hated her, had a lot of contempt and resentment, and might have even felt like she deserved it, which is just horrific. Like, this is just a woman, like, just trying to live her life and give her son some good advice. He was a grown man and shouldn't have been dealing with a 17-year-old girl. He shouldn't have been. And so these cases are very tragic, very difficult. In that first case, it was more of the the foster father manipulated, twisted. I don't know if she would have ever unalived someone if it hadn't been that type of situation. I think she was incredibly vulnerable. And I think she honestly thought he loved her and he would do anything for her. And he obviously didn't. And um that's also true that developmentally, youth have difficulty with foresight, and that's why in most, I think it's a state law. I think if a crime is committed before the age of 18, I think life in prison without the possibility of so children can't face the death penalty, only adults. Because we know that like brains don't stop developing until the early to the early 20s, and so not an excuse, it just helps me understand. In the case of the social worker who was pretending to be a child, and then the allegations that if her former therapist knew who she was and let her come and live with her, that would be a major that would that would be a dual relationship because we have to protect the rights and needs of our patients, of our clients. Information also came out that the individual who is impersonating being a child, her birth, I think her birth mother, like she had some birth family that died and she came into an inheritance. And she had her own house that she could have lived in. She did not need to be cared for in that way. Now, I think her defense is probably going to try to bring in some type of mental health diagnosis that she might have some type of personality disorder. I don't know if they might I don't know what they're going to say in this case. It sounds like she has some extensive psychiatric history and had been in treatment in the past. Therapists can have their own stuff. Their stuff just can't impact like their clients. So I manage anxiety. And if I was so anxious that I wouldn't let a client process their trauma, that would be a problem. So I have to manage my issues so that I can appropriately be there for clients. And that's where having my own therapist, doing my own work, that's where I tell y'all I practice dialectical behaviors therapy skills. I do my work so that I can show up in every way for my clients. I also have my clients own their success and I don't try to save or rescue them. And that's where so if I have a client that is unhoused and needs a place to stay, I give them resources. I would never offer my home that crosses a boundary. Like the client is now a tenant, or like it crosses a boundary, and those boundaries are there for a reason. Now, if we lived in a very, very small town that had like 10 people, and if a client just so happened to also be like to rent a property of mine, we would have to set up some very clear boundaries, because, like, what if that person stopped paying rent? And in therapy, they're talking about, I don't know, like all of their money issues, or that they're going off and doing cruises, but they're not paying my rent. Like that would cause a problem in therapy. And so that's why those boundaries professionally are there for a reason. So people don't do things like Jody Hildebrandt. So you don't end up crossing, you don't go into business with clients. You don't, and then there is the not crossing the intimacy part. All professional ethics have at least a time limit on being with a client. Mine is never. Even if I was single, I would never be with a former client, because it would always be on me. Because if that person said, you knew I had mommy issues, and like, let's say somebody I treated 10 years ago, and now we're going to try to have a relationship and we break up, and they're like, they could try to come for my license, like you knew from the intimate, from our therapy sessions, what blah blah blah, like they could try to come for my license for something like that. So that's why for me it's a never. Never ever. But most ethics have like a time. I think 7 years is average. There's some type of time limit. Like I said, for me it's never ever. If y'all would like to stay on and let's talk about Sarah Boone, please do. I am going to take a little, I'm just going to go take care of myself real quick, and then I'll be starting that stream in just a few minutes. All right. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.